Well, today I have a treat for everyone. I'm talking to my friend John. He actually serves all of Fairfield County, Connecticut, and he's going to tell you what cities are in Fairfield County. But first, thank you so much, John, for coming on and talking to me today.
Oh, Jennifer, I'm so excited to do this. Thank you for asking me. To quickly touch on your question, Fairfield County is actually it's about 17 towns outside
Mm.
of New York City. And when I say I cover Fairfield County, I probably really cover about half of those. I'm located in Fairfield, and I'll cover, Greenwich is the first town off of outside of the city. So Greenwich on up to like Stamford, Norwalk, Darien, New Canaan, Wilton, Trumbull. Pretty much that's kind of the core area, but there are other towns that are 45, 50 minutes away, which are just too far for me to practically cover.
So this is a county right outside, I guess, New York City. People are living in Fairfield County and they're maybe traveling to New York City for work. Is that right?
Yeah, so I did the commute for quite a number of years into the city, drag yourself down to the train station at whatever o'clock in the morning, hop onto the train with a bunch of other dead-faced people and go on down to the city. It's funny because there were some days in some of my jobs where I literally exited the train, walked through some tunnels beneath Grand Central, and came into whatever building I was working in. That I could have been anywhere because the only time I went out possibly was for lunch, but then I'd come back down, go back. I could have been in a conference room anywhere. So yeah, my
Right.
son is doing a little bit of that now. He's enjoying the wonders of commuting. He's fresh out of college, and my oldest daughter did that for a little while as well. But it's yeah, it's definitely a commuting community, though being at the further out point here in Fairfield proper.
Okay. Well, tell us all about yourself. I mean, where you're from? Tell us about your family and how long have you been in real estate?
Okay, let's see. Do I go back to the very first moment? I think that would bore a lot of people. Instead, what I will tell you is, so I grew up in Connecticut. I was born in the Hartford area, West Hartford. West Hartford and Fairfield are almost identical towns in terms of size, schools, etc. The principal difference between the two is that West Hartford has five pools and Fairfield has five beaches. That's kind of the difference between the two. So I grew up in West Hartford. I went to a prep school just outside of Hartford. The reason why I mention that is because on the very first day of that prep school experience, I met my now wife. Um, we did not date in high school. If we did, we would not be married. We we did not see each other for many years after graduation, and then I lived in a building that was owned by a family of one of our prep school classmates, and another friend of mine, actually from elementary school, lived in the buildings. And we went out one night and ran into another classmate from the prep school, and we got to discussing who was around. And it turns out my wife lived two doors from me, two blocks from me in New York City, and I reached out to her at I don't know. No, sorry, I did not reach out to her that night because I got home at 2 in the morning, looked in the phone book, and thought it probably doesn't make a great second impression to call her a little bit bleary eyed at 2 in the morning on a Saturday. I'll wait until tomorrow, which I did. And that kind of led us to getting together, and we moved out of the city in 2003. My sister lives in the neighboring town, and that was what kind of introduced us to this area. It's not far from where we grew up, but it's different. And so we've been raising our family here ever since. We had two kids in the city, my oldest daughter, and then my son, and then our youngest daughter came along when we came out here, and we've been, enjoying Fairfield for all of its strengths for the past, what is it, 23 years now. In fact, it's just short of 23 years right now. And during that time, I was mostly in banking, did some entrepreneurial ventures, got involved with the town government. I had a friend who, for some time, would mention the possibility of me getting into real estate. And I didn't really give it a whole lot of thought. I just kind of tucked it in the back of my mind. And then about couple of years ago, I found myself in between things again, and I said, you know what? Now's the time. And went off and met with the Keller Williams people, took my test, and I've been enjoying it and not looking back ever since.
Okay, first of all, I love that story. You talked about the phone book. I miss the phone book. I do love a good phone book. This is how bored we were in the 80s. When I was a kid, we looked through the phone book for fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Now I'd love to have a phone
what
book to find people again. Make it
I
much
would
easier.
love it.
The intertubes
Like
aren't always so great for that.
no, I love it. So it sounds like it was meant to be to find your wife. Sounds so you have three kids. You've lived in Connecticut now for 23 years. You're living the life. You're selling real estate in Fairfield County. Let's talk a little bit about Fairfield County for those who don't know much about it.
One minute,
Oh, go ahead.
I would I would be remiss if I didn't point out the fact that my dog, who is over there, is celebrating his 12th birthday today. So I'm
Yes.
told by my kids. So
Why did you forget to tell us that right away?
I don't know.
You should be
And he
ashamed of
stared at
yourself.
me. So yes, maybe that's why he's looking at me.
What kind of dog?
He's a black lab mix. He's black labish with a bunch of other stuff. He doesn't like the water, so that's where he's got the mix of
Hmm.
other stuff. I know labs are supposed to like water. I don't know. I just know my dog. I don't know any other dog.
Listen, I love a dog. So happy birthday to your dog. Wait, what's its name?
Well, his name is Casco. He's named after Casco Bay in Maine, which
Mm,
is a large bay off of the Portland area,
mm.
where my wife's family has had a summer house in an island for many years. And before you start thinking, wow, that's some highfalutin thing. Well, it does not have any electricity. You get there by your own little boat, and everything runs off of propane. So it's a little bit rustic. It's, 2.5, 3 month a year kind of place.
Okay, well, I have some Keller Williams friends. Teresa and Shauna both live over in Portland, who are part of our Inspire and Pivot group. So that is awesome.
Oh,
I want to
I
have a
will look them
vacation
up.
home in Maine. Yes, I want to have a vacation home in Maine someday. That sounds amazing. I love it. But I wanted to go back because you said there were 17 towns in Fairfield County, which, man, it's a big county. I didn't know there were that many.
I
So
think that's
can
the
I
right
ask
number.
you, what brings people to Fairfield County? We already know that a lot of people want to live there who are working in New York City, but what else brings people there? What kind of industries or things are bringing people to your area?
Well, I think there's the part of Fairfield County which is called the Gold Coast, for
Mm.
unfortunately, which is right along the coast, and it's predominantly the people who commute into the city. The rest of Fairfield County, I think, is it seems that most of the business that in anywhere that I look is now healthcare related.
Mm.
Hospitals and that sort of thing. For us, Fairfield, the city proper lost GE. Well, it's probably 10 years ago or so. They moved out of town to Boston, and you drive up one of the um, one of the highway. Well, you can drive up a number of the highways, and you can see sort of the old manufacturing, hollowed out buildings. I think probably, in your neck of the woods, Indianapolis and some of the Midwest has a bunch of those things too. Um,
Mm.
I think that you'd probably find most people working in some capacity related to city centric occupations, banking, that sort of thing. I have that perspective, so I'm sure that I'm missing a lot of it, but that's kind of the lens that I see things through.
Sure. What about colleges or universities in your area? I know you said Hartford, so obviously that's Yale, right? Right? Is that right?
Yale's in New Haven.
New
Um,
Haven. How far is that? Sorry.
25, 30 minutes,
Oh,
give or take.
okay. Okay.
Just
Okay.
it's technically not in Fairfield County, but
Mm,
in Fairfield, the town proper, we have Fairfield University
mm,
and Sacred Heart University, and then Bridgeport has University of Bridgeport. Stanford has University of Connecticut Stanford branch, which they're growing, buying up things there in town. There's some community colleges around. I don't think there are any other major colleges. Well, actually, that's not true. Up in Danbury, there's Western Connecticut State College or University. Sorry, that's been changed. And I'm sure there's one or two other hidden there, here and there.
okay. So you have colleges, you have healthcare in the area, and then you have people that are traveling to New York City for work. Let's
Right.
talk about something that I've heard. I've heard this from other agents in, your maybe not in your area, but in the north, the New England, all that entire area, that there's not very much inventory available right now. Is that still correct in your area?
This is true. There's really, I think I tend to focus on a few different neighborhoods here in Fairfield, the town. And those particular neighborhoods are populated with people who might be ideal candidates to move, but they probably, they're probably got a kid who's either about to or is in college, and the others are following in their footsteps, and they've locked in a really attractive interest rate on their mortgage, and there's no catalyst for them to make a big
Mm,
change. And in fact, there are some people I've talked with who would like to do something, but they've got a middle schooler, and they're like,
mm.
you tell the middle schooler we're moving. So it's combine that with there's really no space to build new houses.
Mm.
We are seeing a fair amount of development with apartment complexes, but those are probably for people. I do know people who've gone to some of those places that their kids are out and they can take their 4 bedroom colonial, sell it, get some good money out of it, and either buy or rent, a 2 bedroom, maybe down by one of the train stations, so they can be sort of a more metropolitan lifestyle, if you will. But yeah, there's no room for big, housing developments to raise the inventory and dampen the pricing.
So they're building apartments, not as many single family homes as you
Right.
need. Um, you know, so with the East Coast having a very low inventory, but the largest population right now in the country is boomers who are retiring. Have you seen, I mean, even though there is low inventory, have you seen any of these boomers wanting to move down south? I mean, I can only imagine because it snows here probably just as much as it snows where you are. I mean, do you have a lot of interest with people wanting to move? Maybe that could free up some inventory for you.
People have talked about it, but I haven't really talked to people who, have said something like, "Oh, we've gone to the Outer Banks for years and just thought that that's
Ooh.
the place we want to be," or Florida is our ultimate destination. I think that there tends to be a little bit more of people who want to go to where their kids might settle. So, as an
Yeah.
example, my sister, who's in the neighboring town, she and her husband, well, her husband principally, had talked for years about wanting to move to Rhode Island for their retirement. Now, I mean, that's just a state away, but they're staying here now because one of their kids moved with grandchildren here. So they want to be near the grandchildren. So I think there's a lot more of that than people who have a destination that they've always wanted to end up at.
You,
Not, give us a few more bad winters, and I'm sure there'll be some people who are like, get me out of the snow.
I'm out of here. You bring up such a good point because I talked with someone else about this recently. One of the number one reasons that I personally have seen people want to move here to Indiana lately is because they want to be near family. Because yes, Indiana is very affordable. Um, and we do have a lot of industry here. We have manufacturing, pharmaceuticals with Eli Lilly and Novartis and all these types of things. However, the number one reason lately is to be near grandkids, to be near family. Because who wants to come to a place that's cold? Well, some of these people are. They're moving from Virginia, they're moving from wherever. Doesn't matter where, as long as their
Wow.
family is there. So I think, yeah, you're right. Maybe that's how you're going to get some people to open up and sell, but it's just by chance. Well, here's a question for you. Since you have such low inventory and a lot of people, don't want to sell, they're staying in those homes. How is it for first-time buyers? I can only imagine. Do you have a lot of condos in your area or townhomes? Maybe it's something at a little bit lower price point that the first-time buyers look at?
We do have some of those, and I think that some of these units that I'm talking about being built, there's we could do a whole nother episode on something called 830G, but I won't touch on that. That's a political thing,
Oh, okay.
so well, another time. But that is helping to some degree, but I can't say that they're really solving the pricing issue. They're still, I mean, I know a couple who just moved to a townhouse who out of the city basically. And it's expensive, and they're going to be commuting still into the city, and that means that they're making city-based income, which is generally higher, and they can bring that out here and afford more. But if you're living here, you're competing with that. So and they're not building enough that you know is opening it up to first time buyers.
So do you see those first time buyers more and more living in apartments or staying with their family a little bit longer? I mean, I don't know. That seems tough because here you can get a two-story, 3 to 4 bedroom home with a yard and a net for 240,000. I mean, I think that that's really tough. Man, the price is higher there. What's your median price, just for single family homes in general in your area? Just an estimate, really. It's high. I know it's high.
Yeah, it's.
It's much
I
higher.
mean, in Fairfield, the median in the areas that I've been working is $1 million. So it's steep. It's steep. Now that's the median, not the mean, but
Of
still,
course.
you know, that's a big number. And
It is.
I think that the challenges that people have for, well, if you're buying a 3 bedroom, two bath, uh, you're going to be on the south side of that, but still, that's going to require significant savings or good first time buyer programs, of which there are some here in the state. Um, that the mortgage folks can guide people through, which make it a little bit more affordable. But then it increases your monthly payment, and so it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, I can
I think
imagine.
I think places like Indianapolis were probably like the COVID dream, where you could buy that house and work remotely for New York City dollars, and go in once every quarter for a soiree or something like that. But that clearly that's things have changed since then.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I have a question also about your area. I'm not sure, since the price is such a high price point there, what about investors? Because, here man, especially during COVID, we had investors just flocking here to buy anything and everything. But your area is quite a bit more expensive. So obviously there are investors, but what type of investors? Are they buying things and turning them to Airbnbs, or are they buying single family homes, or what?
We don't have. I know that there's the institutional buyers of single family homes in some parts of the country. We just don't really see that to the same extent. The investors here, I would say, typically are looking at multifamilies, 2 to 4 family, and you can find a fair number of those in some of the cities: Bridgeport, Stamford, Norwalk. And you can find some beach properties. Like, one of the unique aspects to Fairfield, if you're an investor, is to try and buy some of the beachfront properties that you can get sort of dual purpose out of. You can rent to the Fairfield U college students, and then you can rent for the summer. And the Fairfield University calendar is such that it works. It gives your summer renters um, Memorial Day and Labor Day. So the landlords of those properties, or the owners of those properties, love that double dipping, because they get the premium Fairfield U students paying top dollar for school year rental, and then they get good pricing for New York City, maybe beach people who want a summer home to get away on the weekends.
I love that. And you know what? When you brought up institutional investors, I think that's one thing that the East Coast has. You are so lucky that you don't have as many of these sharks because, listen, maybe one day we can have a call on this. I'm extremely passionate about this. They have come in and ruined, yes, I said ruined neighborhoods. They have, uh, taken opportunities from first-time buyers in our area, literally buying up entire neighbor. I know that you think that this is an exaggeration. No, it should,
I don't.
but trying to ban these, it's too little too late. Whatever's coming out now, it's too little too late. Because I can tell you there were amazing neighborhoods that have been completely ruined by these institutional investors. And I can't wait to have another call with you about this because the East
Sure.
Coast is so lucky to not, the price point's too high. They're not going to waste their time and money. But there's cities in the US like Atlanta, Georgia, where they have just purchased near Indianapolis is a huge one. Anywhere in the Midwest. So thank God, right? Like that you don't have them coming as much and as often. I'm very passionate about that, as you can see.
Well, the irony is that I'll bet you the people running those funds live in the Northeast.
Oh, I'm sure they
Maybe
do.
some even here in town.
Probably. You're probably right. Well, I'm talking to you guys if you see this video. Um, anyway, my final question to you is, if someone out there is needing to move to Fairfield County because of a job, they're being transferred, or they're wanting to move there, shoot, maybe they want their kids going to go to college somewhere around and they want to get a house, or they want to be close to family. What is some advice you would give someone who is getting ready to move here, looking to move where you are and has no clue about your area?
I guess I would say to break the town into kind of three areas. There is the so-called beach area, which, as the name suggests, is near the beach. Then there's, call it, the university area, which is um, not far from downtown. It's I guess more or less what you think of as sort of the classic New England suburban lifestyle. Half to single acre plots, single family homes. And then there's what's called the Greenfield Hills area, which is a little bit further away, which is 2 acre homes. And if you want a bit more, you're probably going to be paying, although the dynamics of the market has changed, but you're probably going to be paying a little bit more for having that larger space. But if you need a cup of coffee or you need milk in your coffee, you might have to drive 15 minutes for it. So don't forget it when you leave the grocery store. You're going to be angry in the morning.
Okay, so divide it into sections and kind of research from there. Is that right?
Yeah, the schools are all very good. Being on the town RTM, the town council, if you will, I should say they're excellent. And I don't think you can go wrong at any of the schools. It ultimately goes into two separate high schools, which people have opinions about. But if you whichever one you go to, you think yours is better. So that's a great place to be, right? It doesn't matter where you end up. Um, and we have a good downtown. We have access to airports. The railroad runs right through town. Highways. Well, I guess we have access to getting on a highway and sitting there parked is really the answer to that. But we do have access to highways, so uh, there's a lot to be said for living in Fairfield.
I love it. I love it. So, if someone's watching this video, obviously, and they are looking to move to Fairfield County, obviously, we'll have your information below. But thank you so much. I mean, you're an expert in your area. You can help anyone who's looking to move there or, first-time home buyers, although it may be difficult. Anyone looking to downsize or invest, John's your guy. Thank you so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
This is so much fun. I'm so glad you asked me to join this.
Thank you so much. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day. And
Thank you.
again,
You too.
uh, I'll put your information below. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you.